Okay, folks, welcome back to the Homegrown Handy Dad. I'm Roger.
Well, if you're new to servicing your vehicle, there's nothing to be intimidated about. Again, this is a 2016 Subaru Forester. This will be effectively the same methods and procedures for all your Subarus from 2014 to 2020. And you'll notice,
okay, some of the things that we should have to do this project. I like to have a pick handy in case I need to get off the crush washer from the oil drain plug to give to you. But if you go on Amazon, look for a M16 drain plug crush washer pack. A lot cheaper buying them that way. Have never had any issues with those buying them not original equipment. Right here in front is your oil filter. Just screws on and unscrews right here from the top. Your engine oil fill and your engine oil dipstick. What we're going to do is we're going to get the car up in the air. Once we get it up in the air, we're going to loosen up the drain plug on the bottom. Before we loosen that, we're just going to open up that drain fill plug, let a little air in the system, help the oil come out. Works best if the car's been running for a bit. Get the oil nice and warm, get all that sludge down to the bottom. You just want to be careful. It's going to be hot. Don't burn yourself. But we'll go down underneath the car, and I'll show you what I use for a jacking point in the front of the car. I've actually traced it out with a paint pen to make it easier to see, but we'll see what it looks like when we're underneath the car. This is the jacking point that I use. You may wish to follow some other recommendation, only jack on the pinch welds. Having done 40 oil changes on this car before, I haven't had any problems doing that. We're going to back out a little bit. You'll see right up here, this is our drain plug for our oil. I'll slide back. This is a plastic skid plate right down the center line of the car. And then up in here is this drain plug. See that we have this subframe right here. I've kind of marked an H on these protrusions in the subframe, and this is where I jack from. So I'll put one jack in the center here, and that'll lift the whole front end of the car. Once I've got the front end of the car up in the air, then I will put some jack stands underneath the pinch welds on either side of the car under the doors. We'll discuss that and see where it's at. But this is the jacking point that I use. We'll use a 17mm box wrench to take that, to loosen that drain plug up and get the oil out. Okay, like I said earlier, we're going to put our jack stands under the pinch weld. This seam that runs down the side of the car right here is called the pinch weld. This notch, if you refer to your owner's manual, this is where you would put your jack that comes with the car if you're going to jack up the car with that. What we'll do, the top portion of my jack stand up, just to make sure it's going to line up there, let it set back down. I'll do the same on the other side of the car, and then lower the jack down very slowly so it sits flat on the jack stands. When jacking from the rear of the vehicle, I've got a cheat in that I installed this small hitch. We never towed anything with the car, but we've got a little basket that goes on the back in the hitch, and that's what I like to do when I'm filling up gas cans. Put it in the little hitch when we're moving the kids, you know, to apartments or dorms. We're able to stack that full of stuff, give a little bit more capacity for the car. So I will jack directly under the center of the hitch. If you don't have a hitch, however, you can jack against the rear differential. You'll see there's a flat spot on the bottom. This is your rear differential unit. Your gears in there that power for your back wheels. You can center that jack lift right underneath here and pick up on here to do the back. We'll want to have the car level front to rear so that we get all the oil to drain out. Plus, we need the car in the air to rotate the tires. Again, I'm going to jack on the bottom of this hitch. One other trick that I do to save myself a little bit of effort is I use an old brake rotor on top of the jack that takes up some of the room in the space, and it actually spreads the load out for me on that bottom of that hitch assembly. The jack stands I have for the rear of the vehicle are a little bit smaller than the ones that I use for the front. What I'll want to do is I want to count these number of notches that are up here, and I want to get even both sides of the car. I know that I always pull it out, so I have 5 of these notches available, and that's what gets me the car level from front to back. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, sliding that, making sure I'm centered under that pinch weld. Do the same on the other side, then lower the jack slowly. Now that we've got the car fully up in the air, before I get underneath there, I'm just going to grab it, give it a good shake. I'd much rather it falls now than decides to fall when we're after. Give it a good shake. It's solid. I feel safe getting underneath. Okay, so for getting the oil out, easy part, but something to remember is I take the drain vent and the drain plug off of the pan. You don't want to forget those. Get in a hurry, start draining the oil. The oil will overtop the pan, and now you got a mess on the floor. Again, I'm going to use just a 17mm box end wrench to get that drain plug out. We'll get a few spins on it to where it's loose by hand. We'll get our drain pan underneath it, and to begin with, we'll cheat it a little bit further out because with it being full, there'll be more pressure and the oil will want to shoot out further. If we put it directly just in the center, we run the risk of overshooting the pan. As the oil starts draining, then it'll start dropping down straighter. We'll slide the pan over a little bit more. Before we remove the oil drain plug, we're gonna open up this cap on the top to let our engine oil in. If it's a little bit too difficult to turn, you could just use a pair of channel lock pliers just to loosen it. It shouldn't be crazy tight, but sometimes you just need a little bit more assistance. This will fall down and get stuck underneath there. I try to put it in a spot where hopefully I won't knock it down. And just hand tight. We're gonna move the pan so it hopefully catches the oil. Again, it's going to shoot a little bit further than down in the center from when you first start. So you have to keep that in mind. I've got it just loosened with the wrench, finger tight. And there we go. If you didn't have this drain plug out, right now it would have a hard time getting into your pan and filling up. It'll start gurgling, burping, spraying all over the place. You see as it slows down, now we're going to be more centered over that plug. We're just going to move the pan over. We're going to let it do its thing. No need to rush this. While that pan is draining, we're going to take our drain plug. We're just going to wipe off all the old oil. But now we're going to do a very important step. We're going to make sure that we had a crush washer on there. This crush washer is designed to keep it from leaking. And what you want to do is you want to make sure you change this crush washer every time. So we wanted to make certain that it was still on this plug. Sometimes it can be stuck to the bottom of your pan, but it needs to come off, and you'll put a new crush washer on when you finish your oil change there. Okay, now that we've got our new crush washer in place and all of our oil drained, we're just going to take our time and we're going to thread it in by hand. This way we know we haven't cross-threaded anything. We'll take a rag, we'll wipe everything down. We got our torque wrench with our 17mm socket on it. And we'll go till it clicks. We'll take a little shot of brake clean. Clean off everything that's up there. And then if we have any drips on the floor, clean that up at the same time. Slide our oil up. We'll dispose of that oil responsibly. I'm going to use this plier style filter remover to unthread the old filter. And just clean out the top portion here. Just get all that old oil out of there before we put the new filter in. Now, like we discussed before, this motor with a oil change takes 5.1 quarts. I always try to put it inside this container, measure it out first. This way I'm sure, did I use an old container? Did I use the right one? It just gives me an extra check before I do it. But plus, when we go to put our new filter on, we're going to want to put just a fine amount of new oil on the rubber gasket. We're going to want to make sure when we take off the old filter that we know that we have this rubber gasket in place. It's easy on this one to see, but if we were on another car, we were changing it from underneath, we'd want to make sure we didn't double up that gasket because it would cause a leak. I always use new oil when I'm lubricating that gasket, so when I have it in here I can dip my finger in to get at the oil to put it on that gasket. I just try to keep everything as clean as I possibly can, because this is just going to go on hand tight. If I had a whole bunch of extra oil over the top of everything, then it would just make it that much harder to put it on hand tight. What I like to do is I like to mark all of the filters with the date of the oil change and a number of miles on it. This way, if there's any question, I can always pop the hood, know when the last time I serviced. Okay, we're gonna make sure we have a nice clean funnel. We're back here at our oil fill location. We've got our 5.1 quarts of synthetic oil. We know we have our drain plug in, torqued down right with a crush washer. We're going to go ahead and fill it up. I'll take this time, wipe down, make sure there isn't anything odd going on with this cap. I don't know if it's necessary or not, but I always try to take a little bit of oil and just freshen up around here. I think it helps keep that rubber seal soft. Don't really know. Once we got all our oil back in there, gonna just replace that cap. Also, while we're in here, just gonna use this time, refill up the windshield washer fluid. You can see by the salt, we're in snow and ice season now here in the Northeast. It's 1st of December. So very important to make sure that everybody's filled up with windshield washer fluid this time of the year. Plus it's winter formula that all of the summer grade stuff has been used out of there. This is good to -20. It rarely gets that low here. Gonna check our brake fluid level, make sure that's good. Make sure the cap is tight. Just take a quick look over everything. Make sure nothing looks out of the ordinary in here. Check our coolant reservoir. It's full to a cold fill, so we should be in good shape. Just gonna pull that dipstick once, check it. The level will be a little bit higher. Because the filter hasn't been filled yet, but just as a double check, just to make certain that we didn't screw anything up. It's always just good to take the extra 10-15 seconds to do this. And it's difficult to see, but we're just a shade higher than the full right now. Since the filter is on points downwards, there's no opportunity to pre-fill. I'll take you inside the car and show you how we're gonna fill the filter before we start the engine. Before we run the motor, it's a good idea to fill the oil filter with oil. We do that actually with the motor itself, get the oil pump working and send the oil to the top end of the motor. How we do that is we put our foot all the way to the floor and then turn the key for about 7 or 8 seconds. By doing that, when you put your foot to the floor, the computer won't let the car run. It won't let it start, but it'll let that fuel pumping gauge get that oil pumped up to the top. We take our foot off and we just start it normally. We let it run. Again, we've marked the mileage, we've marked the date of the fill, and we should be good for another 5,000 miles. So we really appreciate you taking the time and watching the video. Hopefully, if this is your first time changing the oil in your Subaru, give you a little bit of confidence. We've always done it. Number one, to save money. Number two, that we know it's done right. Not to knock any, quick change oil place or anything else. But I always just feel more confident knowing that we've done it. We've put everything together the way it's supposed to be. If you got any benefit out of watching this, we ask you to do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. Please, if there's some way we could make the content better, if there were different things that we would have missed that would have made this more beneficial, throw it down in the comment. If I've got it, next time I do an oil change, I'll redo the entire video and hopefully we'll be able to help somebody else. Now that we got all our used oil out, we're gonna put it in a can. We're gonna take it down to the auto parts store for recycling.